Gamer Online, the home of wargaming.
Hello, and welcome to Monday Musing, and I'm getting a technical fail straight away. How good is that, folks? Give us a second. Wow, we're back in charge. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday Musing 69. Nice. Thanks, Jack. Wasn't loud enough there, mate.
Was it not? Did you not hear it? Nice.
Nice. There's three of us on the chat tonight. We've got myself, a wonderful chap over here called Ralph.
Goedenavond.
And Jack is actually just off to one side because he's getting some hobby done tonight. So originally this was going to be a hobby hangout, and then I just realised it's more or less impossible to do a hobby hangout while you're trying to do a live show. Yeah. Realistically, it just doesn't happen. So instead, tonight we are going to be talking about forbidden powers. Lots of them. So just going to have a bit of a chat about it, really. Catch up after we did the review. We've read a bit more of the book. We've kind of mulled over the rules a little bit more. You're painting a massive griffin right now. Can I show that to the camera?
Go for it.
So this is Jack's griffin. Is that on camera? There you go. So early stages. You're just putting some washers down at the moment, aren't you? Have I just put my finger in the wash?
Probably.
Yep. Let you get back on with that then.
And just dropped it in.
And maybe that's a good place to start. Let's do a quick catch up on the chat. Stuart Noble says he can't make it tonight, but he's going to catch up. He's on a very hot Spanish beach with a cold beer. Nice. Or he's going to catch up on the show when he's on a hot Spanish beach with a cold beer. Ralph is joining us. Al Kirkham says good evening. All Furious Joy says hi Phil, hi Jack, hi Ralph, hi everyone in the chat. Smogs Raff says hey ho, hey Smogs Raff, how you doing? Kablams is there, hey all, long time. Kablams mate, how are you? And Al Kirkham says hey Phil, Jack and Ralph. There you go. Let's start with maybe a bit of a hobby catch up, seeing as though I've just shown what you're working on. You've just put your thumb in your own wash, haven't you?
Thumb in my own wash.
Well, we know that Jack's working on a griffin for what faction is this?
Free Guild.
You're gonna have to speak up, dude. You can't just mutter into
Oh,
your desk.
what?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a
sorry. Oh, there's a
microphone
mic
here.
over there. Free Guild.
Free Guild, excellent.
There you go.
And I've been working on my ever-present Fire Slayers. One step closer on this little beastie. So I'm slowly getting there. And it's not far off finished, to be honest. And Ralph, what have you been up to, mate?
I finished up my Skitarii Rangers unit that I've been working on for like forever, and I'm actually painting some Gretchen for Kill Team, and been getting. I'm impatiently waiting of elites coming through the mail with the new Thousand Suns Kill Team box.
Ooh.
And a rather small-ish kind of Belisarius Call model that I'm waiting to impatiently to add to my growing AdMech army. And I've brought some stuff back from my weekend trip to Antwerp. So
Nice. Well, I'm glad you had a nice shopping trip, and it's nice to see Kill Team continuing forward as well. We need a rematch, don't we?
yep,
Time
definitely.
we get
And
together.
this time I'll have a proper Kill Team on the table.
What else is on my desk? Well, 3 pterodons, which I think are going to be Ripidactyls when they're built. For anybody who saw last week's show, that's in preparation for Rachel's list. As we discussed, 20 more skinks for Rachel's list, of which, if I can convince her to do this, we're going to do a live hobby hangout where she paints 20 skinks. Little snigger from Jack there. Dave says these forbidden powers are the endless spells for the undead ? But are generic endless spells for other armies. Right. Well, what they are is endless spells for any faction. These are like the ones that came in Malign Sorcery. They just happen to be very undeady, as in they've come from Shyish, and they are all crazy Shyish magic and those kind of things.
They all become empowered when they're in Shyish,
Yeah.
and they're all souls from Shyish, aren't they? But
So there you go. So of course they do look very much like they are for a death army, but it's simply endless spell magic from the land of the dead. And in fact, this little fella here is actually, I think, a god of the dead
god?
that was
Yeah.
conquered by Nagash. So he's still, taking people around like the Age of Sigmar version of Uber, I suppose.
instead in this version, you pay with your life instead of money.
Yeah. Frost and Fist, love your AdMech army work, Ralph. Glory to the Omnisire.
Cheers, Frost and Fist. Appreciate
there
it.
you go, you've answered it, haven't you? And Mark Burgess says, evening one and all. Good evening, Mark. So yeah, that's well, we've covered your hobby desk. What's been going off on my hobby desk? Well, as I said, we talked a little bit about this. I don't think we can go too far without mentioning this beauty. Da, 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 da. I can even make it spin like do, 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 do. It's not meant to spin. It's in component, so although it looks like it's being built complete, I've actually cunningly crafted it so it comes apart in its component parts, and I can even get that central piece out as well, just by frighteningly squeezing on it and pulling it out like that. So there you go.
You're going to build some lights in the base of it.
Pardon?
You're going to build some lights into the base of it.
No, I'm not lighting this one. I don't think it's necessary. I know I've gone a little bit crazy with lights lately, but you can't just stick lights in everything, can you? Otherwise it'd be like a giant Christmas tree. Jack's contesting you can stick lights in everything, apparently. So that's what I've been working on. I'm hoping to get this painted by the weekend. Fat chance of it happening probably because I'm actually away Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. But I might get it finished this weekend. And I am only 6 fire slaying riders away from having 7 magma drops ready for battle. So shall we talk about that a little bit, Jack? Are you just looking at the destruction the dog just made as she left the room, yeah? Luckily she's off camera, so she's just making as much damage as she wants. So we were talking as we've been working on our armies, our respective armies, and I was saying I'm only 6-7 models off of finished my fire slayers, of which there's approximately 4,500 points worth of fire slayers. And you were talking, how many flesh eater courts can you get along?
I can do 3,000, 3,500.
That's until you speak to Liam, who says you can also borrow some of his units.
He's got flesh eater.
He's got all sorts, zombie dragons, the lot. So he said you could also use some of his units as well. So what we said was, you are currently started your A levels, haven't you? And you go into half term next week.
Yes, next week.
And I think we were saying one day next week in half term, we're going to do an almighty battle.
Big battle.
Is the plan. So 4,500 points aside, Age of Sigmar game, Fire Slayers versus Flesh Eater Courts.
Yep.
And it's kind of open play to a degree, because what we've sort of said is there's no behemoth limit.
The force org chart gets
because after 2,500 points, I think you're allowed 4 behemoths. Is that correct?
Yeah, but
no, 5 behemoths at 2,500.
Yeah.
And we were kind of saying, well, we're 4,000, so we're just going to go the full whack on everything.
Do what we want.
So there you go. Dave, you can't be doing Game of Thrones. What do they call it?
Spoilers.
Spoilers. You can't do Game of Thrones spoilers in the chat, Dave. Don't do that. Ortboy says Phil's going to fit a motor into it so it spins. That would be amazing. Like,
you know what? I was thinking about doing that for my Celestial Hurricanum until I realised how impossible it would be.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think we could probably do it in this Hurricane.
You do it, Jack. Now you've slapped it out in the wild open. You got to do it. There's no way around it.
Be pretty cool. Unfortunately, the way this model, somebody asked me, can you change the angles of the cogs and all those kind of things? But unfortunately, the way it's made, the quick answer is not really. It's not even kind of meant to. It's got some fixed cogs and stuff like that. So it kind of, that is how it fits. You can't kind of tilt it. You could do if you were prepared to do some significant, conversion. But I think looking at the mechanism, I don't think it's meant to tilt anyway. It's just this bit in the middle is meant to rotate round, which is kind of a bit weird because the bit in the middle that rotates round isn't actually connected to anything other than a ring. So anyway, I don't think they've thought too much about the mechanics of it. Just stick it together, have fun with it. Give yourself re-roll saves of 1, or give everybody re-roll saves of 1, or give yourself 1 extra command point every game. That's what it does. For 100 points off of your allied allowance. So this is a new one. A faction universal scenery piece that you can pay for from your allied allowance.
Yeah.
So what do you think to that, Ralph?
I think it's pretty cool because opens up a whole lot of ball game. For example, if you're allying like the Caradron or those units that don't have endless spells in, and you can have it for them.
Yeah.
Is it being triggered? Is it being triggered by any wizard, or does the wizard have to be?
This is a piece of terrain, so you buy it you buy it for 100 points, and you deploy it at the start of your first turn, basically.
Oh right, okay.
So it's it's a piece of scenery that you pay from your allied elite. So it's 100 points. So the smallest force you can actually field it in is 1,000 point force because you're allowed 10% of your.
25%.
No, I think it's 200 points in 2,000. Is it?
I thought
It's 25%, isn't it?
Is it 25%? Is it? Well, there you go. Even so, the best you can do then is in which case you can fit it in a 400 point army. 500 point army. Yep. So yes, either way, you basically, we got there eventually, didn't we? You can pay for it, you put it in your army, you deploy it. What's intriguing about the little thing is it has a mechanic where it's essentially got 2 powers going. So let's just call this up. So this is the penumbral engine, and you roll a d6, and on a 1 to 3. It gives reroll saves of 1 for attacks that target units wholly within 12 inch of the terrain feature. And on a 4 to 6, at the start of your hero phase, you receive 1 extra command point if any friendly heroes are within 12 inch. So this is the weird thing. You may well pay for it, but even your opponent will get the reroll saves of 1 within 12 inch because it makes no comment about it being friendly units. It just says units. Whereas the 4 to 6, it's only friendly heroes give you the extra command point. But it's kind of a weird one because it's a scenery war scroll. So one would argue if your opponent was to put a hero within it, that's friendly for them, isn't it?
But it's part of your army.
But it's part of your army. Good point. So is it friendly to the terrain?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a strange old one, this.
Because they wouldn't specify friendly then at that point, would they?
It says at the start of each battle round, after the first, roll a dice. On a 1 to 4, nothing happens. On a 5 to 6, the function that currently applies to all penumbral engines terrain features is replaced with the other function. So they all just switch over. And it's under.
Yeah, because how many scenery pieces can you take?
Well, one would argue they take out your ally slot, so if you wanted to take 2 of these for 200 points, there is nothing stopping you.
That would be interesting.
Although at the moment, the only way of purchasing these, of course, is inside the Forbidden Power box set.
Yes.
Right, we've got some comments on there. Maybe a version of the device could be 3D printed that had moving components. You could well do that, but, just get on with gaming instead. Frost and Fists, Rich Mortal won't be surprised if the 3D community already has done one somewhere. Well, you never know, do you? And there you go. Well, off we go. What else have we got to talk about inside Forbidden Powers? Well, Ralph, you're fairly new to it because you've been out and travelling. So what do you want to know about the Forbidden Powers? Do you want to just a general background of what's happening?
First of all, a little bit of background because the way the little bit of information that I was able to read through, is it a kind of extension again to the malign portents that we've had earlier?
Kind of. What it really is a campaign box, to be honest. It's a campaign, a campaign box that delivers you a whole bunch of endless spells for use in every army. So you have 4 endless spells. You have, let me just quickly go through this. The Shards of Valagar, which are these little pointed things, these little broken pyramids. So they've got 2 of those, which are pretty cool. And the way they work is you kind of position them apart, and then you draw a line between them, and it's like a horrible laser beam of power that just does a whole bunch of slowing down, doesn't it? So each unit that passes across the line is ensnared until the end of the turn. Half the move characteristics of the unit that instead, in addition, subtract 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that unit. So you do that, and you can basically, what can happen throughout the game then, there is a mechanic to essentially remove one and place it somewhere else. So, you can take over it and change where that line goes, the slowing. So this whole thing is like an ensnare trap that slows people down. And again, endless spell available to everybody. We also have the Soul Scream Bridge. There's been a lot about this one because people are liking it. This, again, comes in 2 parts, 2 identical parts. And the way that works is, again, placed apart 12 inches, wholly within 12 inches of the first. And at the start of a movement phase, friendly units wholly within 6 inches of one of the bridges can essentially travel across the Soul Screen Bridge. If they do so, remove the unit from the battlefield and set it up again wholly within 6 inch of the other bridge model. So if you think unit within 6 inch, bridge, unit within 6 inch, bridge, wholly within 12 inch, and then put your unit down, it's equivalent to like an 18-inch jump, isn't it? Because you've got to be within 6 inch. Go on.
So when you're saying it's like a campaign book, are these spells that come in there? Are they do they evolve over the course of a campaign? Is there a mechanic in there?
There is a mechanic for a campaign evolution. It's predominantly around the tools, though, that or the weaponry that you find inside these hidden chambers. So that's what these forbidden powers are that you're unlocking. I think this is the thing, is the box has got kind of 2 functions, really. It's either, see it as this way, it's a box full of endless spells you can buy and use with your army, or it's a campaign pack. And depending on what you're into, it can be either of those things for you. If you want a bunch of new endless spells, which are pretty cool, buy the box. And then on the side, you get a nice campaign pack to play with. If you want a campaign to play, buy the box, and you get the campaign and a whole bunch of new cool endless spells and a scenery piece in there as well, basically. So I think they've kind of done that way intentionally. You'll be able to use these endless spells and the scenery piece outside of the campaign. They're not specific to it. It's just how they've put the 2 together. I think what's interesting for most people, though, is not necessarily the endless spells, but the fact that there are 2 new allegiances inside the book. We have the Lethesian army, which is basically an army made up of, you can form an army and it's made up of Stormcast Eternal, Iden of Deepkin, Caradron Overlords, Fire Slayers, and Excelsior War Priests. If you do make a list out of this, though, you cannot include units with the following keyword: Hammers of Sigmar, Vostarg, and Voltornos. So this is a order allegiance. So there's nothing stopping you going out and building an army now. You gain battle traits from that. You have the Guardians of the Raven City. There are command traits. There are specific artifacts of power, and there are prayers for your priests. And on top of that, there is of course the alternative. We have the Allegiance of Grief, the Legion of Grief, which means you can put Deadwalkers, Death Lords, Death Mages, Death Rattle, or Night Haunt. But if you include any more Tarks, then the Lady Olinda must be your general. So again,
So-
it's a pretty much bring whatever you want kind of list almost.
So basically, we're looking at the first real extension from the 4 classic
Order.
big orders,
Yeah, yeah.
where
Well,
where we're seeing now a more flexible army list building, where you know, if you want to go outside your Stormcast or whatever army, and you're not limited to one ally anymore, you just go into that allegiance ability.
yeah.
Well, we have seen it before in things like Firestorm. So in Firestorm, that was a campaign book, but that was a year 1 campaign book, and in that you could assemble your army into like cities. So Hammerhall was in there, and when you take a Hammerhall army, you can have Stormcast, Dispossess, Free Peoples, all these different armies, and then they would gain certain traits from it. So
Yeah, but that was pre.
It's,
That was pre the first General's Handbook, wasn't it?
Yep.
yes,
I think so, yeah.
no, I think it was after the first General's Handbook because it was around with Legion's abilities and stuff.
Okay.
So that was a year 1 thing. You had.
Still, it's an interesting concept to me because you know, basically there's a lot of narrative.
Yeah.
There's a narrative part to it that comes into it, and you can transport that easily now into match play, and saying, look, you know, we've got these, you know, allegiances, those factions that work together, and you can form an army around them without being penalized.
There's something interesting in this, isn't there? You know, if you've like done Death or Chaos or whatever, and you want to try Order, but you don't know which Order faction to go with, then just start with the Levisian army. You know, do a bit of everything. Build an army around that, and then build each, you know, whichever you kind of prefer the play style of or whatever, build it up, see where you go from there. I think it's good stuff. It's definitely good stuff. And there's, you know, there's some interesting. We've got a bunch of questions which I have seen them, so I will catch up with you. I appreciate that you're waiting patiently, but in fact, actually, let's cover the questions before we move on too far. Otherwise, I will simply forget it. First question from Amit. The mini rulebook in Forbidden Power, is it a very, very abridged version of the full book like in Soul Wars? It's the core rules. So for those of you familiar, the core rulebook when it was first released was about 4 pages. It's now about 8 pages. It's the core rules. So it's not the big rule book which had all the fluff and all the extra stuff as well. It's simply the core rules that take you through the terms and you know, through the turns and everything. But a lot of people forget that is indeed the core rule is essentially the rule book, because everything else is around allegiances and a whole bunch of other stuff. So okay, and we've got Amit again saying, does the bridge spell allow you to then move and or charge afterwards? So let's get this then. The unit cannot make a normal move that move phase. So you must deploy within 6 inches of the bridge, and you've got to be more than 9 inches from an enemy unit. So it's not a free reign pop down wherever you want. And then you cannot make a normal move. But of course you can make a charge move, but you are going to be needing that 9-inch charge. So that's the first question. AT's got a question. Can you, and if you can put at Wargamer Online, it helps me spot them, but thank you, AT. At least you started with question, which helped me. Can you have mercenaries in match play? If yes, could you show us? Many think it's for narrative only. You know what? I'm going to struggle to answer that, and I'm willing to try and find out for you, because mercenaries, here we go. This section contains rules that allow armies of any allegiance to employ Fireslayers mercenaries, Greyfired Lodge, and Flesh Eater Court envoys of the Tenebrous Court. So first and foremost, where it's introduced, there is no restriction. The reason I'm reading this is because I'm pretty certain when I've read this, it makes no mention of whether you can or can't use them in match play. And I see no reason why you can't, because it doesn't say this is narrative play only. So, mercenaries. I'll just go through. This section describes the rules for including mercenaries in any army, and includes 2 mercenary companies that can be employed by your army, which is the Greyfired Lodge and the Tenebrous Court. Mercenary companies, to include mercenary units in your army, you must pay. In fact, I've got an overhead camera set up, so give me a second, folks. if this works, which I'm hoping it will. There you go. So you can kind of see. You did ask if you can see it. So that is the text there. If a mercenary company is hired by your army, one out of every 4 units you include in your army can either be an ally or a mercenary unit in that company. All mercenary units gain the mercenary keyword. All mercenary units are treated as part of your army, except they're not included when working out your allegiance, and can therefore be part of a different grand allegiance or faction from the rest of your army. In addition, a mercenary unit cannot be the army's general, cannot use or benefit from the army's allegiance abilities, and cannot be a named character. Seriously, guys, I have not seen any mention whatsoever of a limitation to say this is for narrative play only. This is just like using allies. But because they gain the mercenary keyword, the difference between allies and mercenaries is you don't have to share the grand, the faction. Allies are limited by,
Allies, you have to have at least one keyword that's the same.
You have to have one keyword that's the same. Well said, Jack, thank you. Whereas with mercenaries, you do not need to share a keyword, but they gain the term mercenaries. The important restriction at the moment is it's around fire slayers and flesh eater courts. But there is no mention whatsoever on this page that this is restricted for narrative play. And I see no reason why you couldn't use them in match play.
Do you think that mechanic might be expanded further upon in the upcoming General's Handbook? Because they mentioned when they announced it at Fest, they mentioned that they will bring in new mechanics to make open play, narrative play, and match play more flexible.
Yeah, I think you'll see more mercenary factions. Why not? Because I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they expand it out to say, for instance, can you take a beastie with you or something like that? Is Forge World going to jump on the bandwagon and finally allow me to take a magma dragon with my fire slayers, which would be absolutely lovely, wouldn't it? So that would be good. Amit comes in question. So Forbidden Powers is Shyish themed endless spells. Do you think GW will bring out more theme box sets based on various realms? Right now, no. The reason they're Shyish themed endless spells is because this is all coming from the Necroquake. So it is overwhelming waves of undead magic, of death magic. So that's not happening in any other realm. And if it is happening in other realms, it's death magic washing over those other realms. So this isn't just meant to be appearing in the land of in the realm of the dead. These things are appearing everywhere, but it's because they're born of death magic.
So what happens then if you're selecting a realm for your game which is not Shyish? Can you still use it?
Yeah, you can still use them, but they're weaker.
Okay.
Let me give you an example of that. So, for instance, let's take the Soul Scream Bridge, the one we talked about in here. There is a final rule in here, empowered by Shyish. If your battle is taking place in the realm of death, the second Soul Scream Bridge model can be set up wholly within 24 inch of the first, instead of 12 inch of the first. So they're not lesser, they're more powerful if they're in Shyish.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, I know it's the same thing, but over the standard rules.
Yeah.
So to give another example, then we had the shards of Valagar. Those weird little things that do the half move. If your battle is taking place in the realm of death, the first shards of Valagar model can be set up wholly within 12 inch of the caster instead of within 6 inch of the caster. So it's all about range. You get bigger range, basically.
Which we've seen all this before, bearing in mind, the gnashing jaws from malign sorcery, they got more powerful if you're in the realm of beast. The quicksilver swords were better in shaman, stuff like that.
Bluff has just come in. AT, no problem, mate. Bluff has just come in. Make Bretonia great again. Mumbga. For short.
Bretonia are great now.
Bretonia are incredibly powerful now.
Yeah, Bretonia are incredibly powerful. I've got an entire army of them.
Which, of course, is Jack's Flesh Eater Courts. I have to say, Ralph, there's two things that I really loved about the campaign book. One was the fact the story starts with Sigmar and I've forgotten his name, Teclis, and it ends with Sigmar and Teclis, and I love that. I love the fact that they do this, start where the story ends in many respects. The two main characters. I love that they've got this section in here called Dramatis. I think it's Dramatis Personae, which is almost like a play. So you've got the main characters that are involved in it. So it's seen as a almost a kind of Shakespearean tragedy that's going off, and in many respects the siege is indeed quite tragic, and it has a lot of Shakespearean themes in there, such as death, destruction, betrayal, and all the rest. The other thing I really liked about it is as a Fire Slayer player, I was all dead excited, like, yay, Fire Slayers to the rescue, because they do indeed come to the rescue on several occasions. But then ultimately, Nagash has got a bigger pot of gold than everybody else, so the Fire Slayers just go with the gold. And actually, it's the Flesh Eater courts that ride on their noble steeds into combat and save the day, because you're aware, Ralph, that the Flesh Eater courts all essentially believe themselves to be still Bretonians and noble and these fantastic knights and all the rest. Yeah,
and alive.
Pardon?
And alive.
Yes,
They are
yeah.
alive.
They are alive. In fact, they're not actually.
Yeah, they're
dead,
really
are
weird.
they? But-
Apart from the abhorrents, they're the only ones that are actually still alive of the death factions.
So yeah, exactly. They are alive. They're not particularly friendly with Nagash, are they?
No,
because they
most
don't
of them
actually think
hate
they're dead. But they literally ride to the rescue, and it's the funniest narrative I've read in a long time. And it's not meant to be funny, but it's just the mental vision you've got going off of these hordes of flesh eaters piling over the top of walls and
Don't worry,
and
young peasants.
ripping zombies apart and eating them. But in their mind, they're going, "Tally ho, let's save the day!" And it's all that kind of. It's just fantastic that they think they're doing this amazing feat, which of course they are. They're kind of saving everyone, so they're brilliant. Bluffer says, "Hey man, love your guys' conversation." Oh, thank you very much. Just wanted new models, updates, factions on so on type book, endless spells, all that love. And DJ the Lucky One says, "Hi all, hey DJ, how you doing, man?" So not only is there a really cool story, and I have to say, by the way, 50% of the book is indeed story, and it's good. It's really good, and there's these wonderful little breakout sections here. Which kind of have the kind of almost narrative bit. So you've got the kind of historic telling of events, and then you've got these narrative breakout sections. And we're talking conversations between Sigmar and Grundy, conversations between Sigmar and his Celestant Prime, conversations between Teclis and Malarium. So, these brilliant little bits of narrative that are scattered around it. And then
Is that book going to be available on its own?
Pardon?
Is that book going to be available on its own?
I don't think so. I think it literally is the campaign pack for Forbidden Powers, so I'd be surprised. I mean, they didn't release Malign Sorcery in any other format, did they? Or did they? Could you get the...
No, I don't think you could.
Yeah. Okay. On top of that, then, you have the two Allegiance abilities in terms of the Legion of Grief and the Lethesian army. There's some cool stuff in there. In the command abilities, I really liked this Amethyst Glow, which is a command trait. And it says, if your general is a wizard, they can attempt to cast one spell in your hero phase and attempt to unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase. They know Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield spells. If this general already is a wizard, they know one extra spell. So the idea that you can take a non-magic character and make it... I mean, and I know that most of the deaf characters probably are wizards, aren't they?
Yeah, but you do have quite a few.
You've got a few that haven't they? You can kind of turn them into wizards anyway. Or at the very least, you're granting them one extra spell.
Yeah, which is always quite useful.
A lot of the stuff, Ralph, is about bravery modification as far as the deaf are concerned. So pretty much everything you touch on, whether it's a battle trait, an artifact of power, you've got a command trait here called Tragic Emanations. This is subtract 2 from bravery characteristics of units while they're within 12 inch of the general. You have...
which is quite powerful.
It's awful. Check this one out. There's a spell
Do you know what?
law, the Shroud of Terror, casting value of 8. If you successfully cast it, pick an enemy unit within 12 inch of the caster that's visible to them. Subtract D3 from bravery of that unit until your next hero phase. So you could be doing you could be doing 2 plus D3 reduction of bravery.
Do you know what? GW should really put you on the payroll, because now I had no intention of buying that extension. Wow. Kind of.
There's some good stuff in here. I really like it. I love the mercenary stuff.
Itch next to my credit card right now. So
I'm definitely going to be playing with the mercenaries, simply because we have Fire Slayers and we have Flesh Eater Courts.
Yeah.
So we're going to do something around that with the battle reports, definitely. There's a good chance, by the way, I mentioned this 4,000 point aside game. We're going to try and film that. How well it will film, I've no idea, but we're going to have a go at
we might have
filming
to
it.
keep it around 3,000 if we're going to film it, but go.
There was a question earlier about pitch battle and narrative battle plans. I think it's important to mention that there are 6 pitch battle plans and 6 narrative battle plans, and if there's an indication that you can use mercenaries in pitch battles, then surely that's in this. In the very campaign book, there are pitch battles, of which you can take mercenaries along to. So I personally, I can't see how they're limited to just narrative play. I think that might be wishful thinking from people who don't want it in there.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the fact that there's a mechanic that kind of breaks the intentionally breaks the allied rule by allowing you to play without a shared keyword, I think it's fairly clear what Games Workshop intend. Dave says, what's coming up next in Age of Sigmar after Forbidden Powers? Well, maybe we'll debate that when we get right to the end. How far into this show are we, by the way? Oh my goodness.
36 minutes.
Oh, we're 36 minutes. Okay, Ralph, something else you really need to know about then. The whole thing about this is Sigmar was given these wonderful engines. They didn't quite look like this. They looked very elfy, and they were beautiful. And the engines were enlightenment engines. So you simply had to stand and bask within their glow, and you would be smarter. It's like spending time with me, basically.
Except more enjoyable.
Except more enjoyable. And Sigmar went, oh, that's a really nice gift, thanks, awesome. And then handed them over to Grundy and said, can you take these apart and reverse them and make them so they make everybody completely confounded and stupid around them? And that's because Sigmar had this need to hide all these incredibly powerful artifacts he'd found along in the Age of Myth. So he kind of said, shh, don't tell Teclis. That didn't work, because Teclis is the god of enlightenment, of illumination. So, you know, he's going to find stuff out, isn't he? And Grundy went away and went, yeah, I've done it, boss. And I've even made them look like your stuff. You know, it even says in the narrative, he kind of styled them in the way that Sigmar liked his stuff, i.e. gold. And Sigmar used those to hide these massive vaults around the realms of these incredibly powerful weapons and stuff. And then along came the Age of Chaos, and Sigmar was like, whew, thank goodness I put those things there so nobody would remember them. And even over the Age of Chaos, Sigmar was so busy kind of making his new army. The powers from these things continue to radiate. The power gets larger and larger. So even by the end of the Age of Chaos, Sigmar's forgotten the location of some of these vaults. And it's almost gone to the back of his mind that he actually needs to worry about this stuff. And it's only when the Necronquake hits and it breaks these things basically and disrupts them, then suddenly there's this mad dash of, you know, the Chaos Gods going, there's some mighty weapons there. Nagash is seeking allies and anything to disrupt things. So people are piling into these storm vaults and breaking them apart. So that's the setting. What that means from a campaign point of view then is you can indeed get some artifacts. So these are called awakened artifacts. They are artifacts of power for use within the Storm Vault campaign only. So there's the important point. This is limited to the campaign. At the start of your second game in the campaign, pick one of the artifacts below to be carried by a hero from your army. Note it down on a roster. You receive an awakened artifact in addition to any other artifacts of power your army can have, but otherwise the artifact follows the normal rules. Your awakened artifact must be taken by the same hero in each subsequent battle campaign. This means that if it's given to a hero that is not your general, this hero must be included in the army for each subsequent campaign. Awakened artifacts start at first level of power and then gain levels of power as described below. Levels of power are cumulative and last for the rest of campaign, and they grant abilities as described. So I'm just going to pick on one at the moment, the Guy's Bane. Absolutely love this. Let me see if I can get this up. Yeah, well, hey, we're working. So this is a sword, the Guy's Bane. You pick one of the bearer's melee weapons and you name it as the Guy's Bane. Oh, thank you for subscribing, Tony Friend. And it gains a level power if 3 or more enemy models are slain by attacks made by the bearer. So how cute is that? You've just got to go around killing dudes, yeah? So you're a first level. It improves the rend by 1. Second level, add 1 to attacks. Third level, if the unmodified hit roll of the attack is a 6, then the attack inflicts 1 mortal wound. Fourth level improves the rend by 3. And fifth level, add 3 to the Geistbane's attacks. So let's just take my Fire Slayer Runefather for a minute, who's got his runic rune key axe, latchkey axe. Suddenly is a minus at level 1 is a -4 rend rather than -3. Yeah. At level 2, he's got 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s with a -3 rend. At level 3, he's hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s with a -3 rend, and any 6s become a mortal wound. At level 4, he's now a -7 rend, because it's... Oh, sorry, it's 3 instead of 1, so that isn't cumulative. He's now a -6 rend. And at level 5, he's now at 7 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, at a -6 rend.
How is it -6?
At 3. -6 because it's improved the rend characteristics by 3.
It's only -1 to begin with.
I thought he was -3.
No.
Oh, I'm
It's
going
3
crazy. Sorry, it's 3 damage. That's where I'm going crazy. He's
It's still
-1.
-4
Okay, so he's a -4 rend. Sorry.
Possibly -5.
So you're hitting on. So you've got 7 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s with a -4 rend, doing 3 damage each.
Yeah.
Takes out everything.
Pardon?
That'll take out a lot of stuff. Perfect for campaign games in the clubs.
Yeah, exactly. Right, okay, we've got some questions I'm going to try and catch up with. Hello everyone. Oh man, the chat's shot up. Let me just give me a second, folks. Sorry, it shot up past me. Bluefer. Well, Leaf sent her daughter to an untouched by chaos realm with immortal Grail Knights so they could bring a new wave of Bretonnian back. Yes, just saying. You know what? It'd be cool to see them. They're great looking army. Barista Selmy left a paper takeaway coffee cup on the table on set. I've no idea what DJ the Lucky One is saying. Demon Lizard from Outer Space saying hello everyone. Amit says Apocalypse and AOS, can it be done? Yes, I think so. It's going to be bloody guts.
Says, he says forbidden power backwards, mate.
Ah, thanks, man. Dave says, what was that smoke? Ralph, have you been huffing? Amit says, next week on WGO, 4,000 points Flesh Eaters versus Fire Sayers, a song of flesh and fire. Nice cloud, Ralph. Oh, for heaven's sakes. I wonder why my eardrums were blown out. How do Flesh Eater courts get paid for their services? Wagons of humans, hot dogs?
I think they basically get the scraps of all the dead people.
Well, yeah, okay, that's it. In the narrative, they swore an oath before they became Flesh Eaters. So it's a little bit Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the ghosts in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, they're fulfilling old oaths, basically. Thordalim says, just watched Game of Thrones season finale. Now I'm here to listen to Phil. Ba, 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 ba. It says, question. So do Archeon's sword, can it be a Geistbane? Can you take Archeon?
What do you mean?
Well, of course you can. You don't
Yeah.
have to show up with these factions, do you?
I mean, it is a narrative game.
There was
so-
no limitation to say you have to pick an unnamed character.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
pick, yeah, it just says hero. So yes, you could indeed make Archeon's sword a Geistbane, as mental as that sounds. No spoilers for Game of Thrones, please. So there you go. Right. Other than that, Ralph, we are into things like the battle plans and stuff like that. There's some interesting little layouts. Do you want a new awakened artifact? Do you want me to pick on another one?
Sure.
We've got the Hexflame pendant. So after each battle, a Hexflame pendant gains a level of power if 3 or more hexes were placed on enemy units. So this is cursing, and not in the bad language way. First level, if in your hero phase, the bearer can attempt to place a hex on an enemy unit within 18 inch. You roll a dice on a 4 up the hex is placed. Subtract 1s to hit and wounds for attacks made by that unit that has any hexes placed on it. That's dreadful, and that's at hero 1. A unit with a hex placed on it can attempt to lift the hex in their hero phase. They roll a dice and add 1 to the roll for each friendly priest within 12 inch. Oh, that's cool. And on a 6, the hex is lifted and no longer applies.
That's nice.
Second level, the range at which the bearer can attempt the hex is 24 instead of 18. Third level, half the move characteristics of the unit. Bear in mind that these are
Wow.
cumulative. Fourth level, the dice roll to determine if the hex is successfully placed upon the enemy is 3 up instead of
That's
4
good.
up. And at 5th level, at the start of your hero phase, enemy units with any hexes placed upon them suffer D3 mortal wounds. And just for the fun side of things as well, what Games Workshop were very kind and tidy to provide was a set of cool little things. And if I can bring this up, we have things like the Orrery of Obfuscation, the rune-locked vaults. But somewhere in here we have some hex tokens. So there you go. Some wee little hex tokens. We've got some objective markers. And then there's some other specific... these are the little tokens to remind you that the model is carrying an artifact. So you can see the Geistbane, the Ether Beast Pinion, the Realmstone Wand, the Shield of the Pale Knight, the Life Stealer, and the Hexflame Pendant we've just covered, which is pretty cool.
That sounds that's really something that, you know, I think I need to go back to my club with that and do, you know, a couple of campaigns over a couple of weekends, and get really into that nitty-gritty of that.
I'm with you, Ralph, because you know what? The campaigns kind of come and pass me by, and I'm terrible at doing them. And I think that's because you kind of need to be really regular playing them. And we were talking, weren't we, at the weekend? We were kind of saying we actually need to stop doing armies and start playing more, because we're constantly building and painting armies. I think, you know, because we both like that. But at the same time, we need to play with these things a little bit more. How's this looking? It's looking good. Shall I bring this up on the overhead? There you go, look. Oh, that's looking cute. I like that. Nice. Anyway, so yeah, and this one has been really tempting, this campaign. I was like, it's just very cool. I love the story.
I wonder if they'll work some of those mechanics into the General's Handbook. I'm really looking forward to that one.
If it'd be cool if it does. It's out in June, so one would hope. That's what they said, it's going to be out in June. Don't forget as well, folks, that we also have all the rules for all the new terrain pieces as well. The Hallowed Storm Throne, the Enduring Storm Vault. These are very, very cool pieces of terrain. We saw these at Warhammer Fest. They're bigger than you think. They're better than you think. They are great stuff. Amit says, question, with all of these buffs and debuffs, a great opportunity to 3D print your own tokens. Yeah, sure, you can. And of course I did 3D print my own tokens for my Fire Slayers, which I think I've put the STLs, by the way, up on the website. So if anybody wants to go along to wargameronline.com, you can actually download those files now. So, oh, crikey, I've lost one of the tokens. You do indeed get a lovely pack of tokens, though. So you don't feel you have to, but it's kind of a cool thing to do. You could definitely make, you know, like the little sword and those kind of things. I can see you doing like a little token with the sword stabbed in it or something like that, you know, or, you know, you could even... Yeah. I mean, the idea is it kind of, it's takes your standard weapon and modifies it, so you can't really take Archean. Does Archean have a big axe? What does Archean wield?
As a sword.
Yeah, as a sword. Oh, well, it works
Slayer
lovely
of
then.
Kings
There
or
you go.
something like that. Nasty.
Anyway, I get all excited about that stuff. I always do.
Yeah, of course you are.
So while I've been talking away, Jack's been working on his little dude. Was this Carl Franz originally then?
Was.
But it's not anymore, yeah. It's just a super shiny.
Carl Franz is dead.
Carl Franz is dead.
I mean,
That's it.
technically that's the model for Galmaraz as well, but Sigmar's got that.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, was that Galmaraz?
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool looking hammer. I like it. Wow. Okay, Ralph, what we're going to do now?
I know. You want to speculate a little bit? What's next?
Oh, we did say that there. Yeah, we did. Yeah. First speculation then is I don't think High Elves are just around the corner. There you go. I've said something, kind of lost something, but you know I'm in a whole world of trouble now. Oh dear, we're saying we lost connection there, but hopefully if somebody out there can tell me whether they're still receiving us, that would be nice. I'm still reading a steady stream, so... and, you know, Sigmar turns to Teclis and goes, you know, hey dude, things are going to get real serious now. Looking for you for some help. And Teclis goes, nah. This one's your problem. And then, this is the best thing. He basically says, I'm not going to help you, but I do see a time in the future where I will need your help. So, see you later. And just walks out the room. So
mic drop.
I think that was basically reading between the lines that High Elves aren't coming during the Star Wars. Yeah, they're not central to the story. They're not. You know, we've kind of debated they were going to be the close of the Soul Wars.
Yeah.
But you know,
I think
It'd be a great opportunity for them to pop up in version 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we were kind of saying, really, at some point, the Soul Wars is going to come to an end. We've had the Realm Gate Wars; they came to an end. Albeit the fights are still taking place, but the Realm Gates have been won. Sigmar has got the ability to, not all of them, but enough to be able to start cities and all the rest.
The thing is now, I think you're going to be, especially with the Hedonites book being released, I think the next big age is going to be like an age of excess almost, where Slanesh breaks from his chains and he's freed, and then you're going to have the elves and then the big elf versus Slanesh age-old battle.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's going to be an age in its own right, isn't it?
So do you think that, you know, with the Soul Wars release, we saw an update to the core rules? And an extension in many aspects, you know, with the endless spells and stuff. I wonder whether they're going to be going for that with, you know, with the next age. Whether that's going to be the same thing, where we're going to be seeing again some modification and adjustments to the rules, core rules. I mean, you don't have to play endless spells if you don't want to. You can pretty much play without them.
Well, this is the weird thing, isn't it? There's nothing stopping you playing within the Realm Gate Wars. You know, we're rapidly developing a history now, aren't we? This is what Sigmar lacked. You know, Age of Sigmar lacked that history. You had the Age of the Myth. You had Age of Chaos, which isn't playable for all intents and purposes. But there's nothing stopping you playing any other faction other than Sigmar, and saying here's one of the wars from the Age of Chaos. You can play the Realm Gate Wars, because all the original campaign books were all based around the Realm Gate Wars, and now we're in the Soul Wars. But you're absolutely right. What happens when the Soul Wars are over? Nagash, one would assume Nagash isn't going to win and kill everyone. I think it's safe to say
Yeah.
that. So when he goes back to doing whatever he's going to do, is the death magic going to calm down? Is the necroquake, going to subside?
Will they remove
Will the endless spells just disappear? I think will there be something that you can play endless spells if you are playing missions within Soul Wars? They become relevant to an era.
All these nice models.
Sorry, Jack. Go on.
I was going to say, but the only problem with that is you can have all these nice models and these faction-specific things that then become unusable for lack of a better word. Because
and I know what you mean. Unless you're playing within the Soul Wars.
Unless you're playing within the Soul Wars.
Yeah. Because don't forget that the High Elves are active during the Soul Wars. They were active during the Realm Gate Wars. It's just because we haven't had the release.
Yeah.
What tends to happen is they release a faction and then they retcon the faction into the history.
Yeah.
So Iden of Deepkin came out of nowhere, and yet now Iden of Deepkin have been active right through the Realm Gate Wars. Yeah. Because they can kind of retcon it backwards, can't they? And I think you do the same, don't you?
So basically, what we're looking at is that we've got all these different rules mechanics that we can, in a pick and choose kind of fashion, use for our games. And if a version 3, or when the version 3 comes around in 2-3 years' time, basically that toolbox of rules extensions will just get a further extension. Is that what you're saying? What you're thinking?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, imagine if Games Workshop at some point turned around and said, you know what, we go back as far as the age of the Realm Gate Wars. But I tell you what, here's a campaign back where you can play in the Age of Chaos. Here's Age of Myths, a little bit less likely because you'll be playing gods themselves. But what about a campaign back where you're playing in the world that was? Take it back to kind of 8th edition. I know it's not going to happen.
Nothing would stop.
It'd be kind of a cool thing, wouldn't it? A campaign back that's based in the world that was, because a lot of the stuff that took place in the world that was still has repercussions in the world that is now, if you like, the realms.
Well, if you think about it, if you go over that modular concept of rules for the age of where you want to play, nothing would stop them going back to the old world.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's fair enough. Age of Sigmar is all of these things. Age of Sigmar was started with the Realm Gate Wars. That was his opening salvo of reclamation, wasn't it? But we'll see. Soul Wars is not an age. We should mention that. You had the Realm Gate Wars within the Age of Sigmar. You've got the Soul Wars within the Age of Sigmar. And, you may have the Depravity Wars, or whatever you want to call it.
Is it the Age of Sigmar?
It's all Age of Sigmar,
This isn't the Age of Nagash or whatever.
No, this is all Age of Sigmar, but the Soul Wars. Yeah. So it's worth mentioning that they are campaigns. They're battles within an overall war, if you like. AT says, Slanesh Mortals versus New Elves as a starter set for V3. Maybe Slaneshi Mortals would be a very cool place to take it, wouldn't it? You can see some of these cities that the point is Slanesh is always about the deprivation of high society. Not always, but high society is more prone to deprivation than anything. The cities now are well established. There's generations have lived in these cities now, so they're not a new thing. I know they're new to us, but from a timeline point of view, they've been around a long time. Some of the cities have been there 300, 400, 500 years already. So you can suddenly see that, the high life, easy living, there's not been war within this region for however long, and that settles down into some, depravity within society, which starts the Slaneshi death cults. You kind of go that route, or the pleasure cults, if you like. And then as soon as you're into this, the pleasure wars or something like that,
You've already got that in the law of the current, if you go back into the core rulebook, they're talking about it, that a lot of these cities have a bright side and a darker side.
Sure.
And a lot of it hangs in balance, and that's where the new, part of the reason why the new Stormcast chamber was called into life was to try and detain that, and then they've been used to battle against the necroquake and everything that came from that. So you kind of already got the setting. It's there. Just needs a little more brick and mortar.
You've got to ask yourself, what does Slaaneshi look like on Ascendance? When Khorne is on Ascendance, then there's war everywhere. When Nurgle is on Ascendance, it's death, disease, and pestilence. When Slaanesh is on Ascendance, what are we talking about? We're talking about essentially pleasure, aren't we? This pleasure, pain, depravity. That's what it is, and that doesn't start in some tiny little rural village out there on the sticks, does it? It's going to be the kind of downfall, the downfall of the cities. In which case, it makes a lot of sense that you see Slaaneshi mortals. You see these pleasure cults starting and stuff. Be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Pretty cool range. I'm thinking like the Zeech ones, with the, but they're kind of going the other way. Got to be careful where they take this, haven't they? Because they've moved Slaanesh a little bit away from just pleasure and pain type stuff. It's an oversimplistic view of it now, isn't it? Right, we've got Age of Sigmar 3, make Legion of Azog great again. Oh, for heaven's sakes, Hamid, calm down. If GW go back to the old world, feel sorry for those people who burn their armies. I don't think it's going to happen. All I was saying was, you know what? If you really want to play in the old world, write a campaign book then, and or just get your old rule book out and still play in that setting, but use the Age of Sigmar rules. It's fine.
You could use the old campaigns and just adapt them to the new rules.
Yeah. But it'd be nice. It would be nice if they did kind of... You know what? That would be a cool thing to do in White Dwarf. For them to do like a mini campaign. Or take a setting and put a game in there or something. Just for old time's sake.
Yeah.
They do that retro look back on an old White Dwarf. Imagine if they took one of the missions from an old White Dwarf and updated the rules to fit within Sigmar's playstyle. Be kind of cool, wouldn't it? People have still got a lot of the armies that cross over. It says, question, with Cubicle 7 getting Age of Sigmar RPG IP rights, will WDGO do some weekly role-playing like Critical Role? Ralph's shaking his head. I spoke to the guys at Fest, actually, and I'm annoyed because it was the one thing I said I'd do is go back and get a starter box. I was like, oh, cool, I'll pop back and pick a starter box up. But we were in the middle of doing a bunch of other stuff, and we were going off to one of the lectures. So we were running late, so I kind of didn't have time to revisit the till. Because you kind of had to pick stuff up and pay somewhere else. And I didn't have time to do that again. And I'm really annoyed that I just didn't pick it up. It was pretty cool looking, I have to say. Right, Demon Lizard from Outer Space. Somebody wrote the End Time campaign scenarios with Age of Sigmar rules. It's Battle Tome End Times, I think. Yeah.
Up with a solution for every problem or perceived problem there is out there. So
Well, okay. So somebody's done it, have they? Or is he making a joke that it was the End Times? But if not, that's pretty cool. If they took the End Times narrative and campaigns and put it into Sigmar.
I don't think it's a joke because I read something about that.
Right. Okay.
I think I remember it from a couple of months ago that somebody was actually working on it. So
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But that's what this hobby's about, isn't it? We're all happy to convert and make models. Why not convert and make your own campaigns? I know it takes a lot of effort, but at the same time, there's a whole community out there that would appreciate that. It was done. There you go. It was done. Thank you very much, Demon Lizard from Outer Space. I need like a search for it on TGA. There you go. I will do it. I will check it out.
Mind reading. Just the minute it popped up in the chat, you were saying the words.
Okay.
What did you think that just completely changed subject? I got the email through from G-Dubs last week that the release schedule for the White Wolf is changing. What do you read into that?
You're assuming I've read my emails. What's happening to White Dwarf?
Well, basically what they're saying is that it's not coming out again anymore on the first Saturday of the month, but rather around the middle or the middle around the 15th or the 20th of the month. And I just wonder what that all is about because that release schedule has been around for ages, and I don't see any reason whatsoever of changing that other than if they've got supply issues.
Well, as we know, the Sylvaneth Battle Tome is currently on a shipping crate, stuck on a boat that's inside customs at the moment. Yeah, I think it's one of two things, isn't it? It's either there's something to do with because Games Workshop don't really do an end of month release anymore. That doesn't happen, does it? It's no big announcement that is suddenly getting pipped at the post by White Dwarf, so that doesn't make any sense. It feels like a fulfillment supply thing. That maybe they've moved printers while there's uncertainty around either Brexit or deliveries from China. You know, it doesn't mistake anybody. There's a trade war raging at the moment between China and the US. Maybe it's something to do with that. Who knows? Maybe they've had to, move printing. I always thought the White Dwarfs were printed in the US anyway and not shipped over, but who knows?
Okay.
I'm not quite sure. No, I'm talking about obviously the trade war with China is US, but
are they made in the US or the UK, White Dwarf?
I mean, a lot of printing takes place in China now. I mean, all the books are done in China, so who knows? It could be a fulfillment issue. It could just be you get cheaper prices. If all the magazines are being printed towards the start of the month release, maybe you get a discount on your printing at that time. Who knows? Someone can tell us. Demon Lizard.
Yeah, they're printed in China. I just looked it up.
Pardon? They're printed in China, yeah?
It's in China, yeah.
Yeah. So it might be something to do with that. And it might be that they're, given the disruption that they've had over Sylvaneth, I'm wondering if they've moved temporarily for now, maybe have moved printing to a European house or somewhere like that. I know a lot of stuff also gets done out the Middle East, doesn't it? There's a lot of printers in the Middle East now, and a lot of UK printing is done out there. I'm talking a little bit about what I know from my job now, so you never know where this knowledge comes from. So who knows? Maybe it's something to do with that. AT says, I think I saw you speaking with Sam Pearson at Warhammer Fest. Did he tell you anything juicy about the future of Age of Sigmar? I can't say. Do you remember that? Oh, you went there, were you? Sorry. Steve was next to me, and I dropped something in conversation, and he reacted just like a millisecond too slow, and we just went, "Oh right." It was one of those, and he did a really sterling job of going, "No, I wouldn't know, mate." It was that kind of stuff. So, no, he didn't tell me anything juicy about the future of Age of Sigmar. They're very, very careful about what they do and don't share with people, but that didn't stop me trying to wangle something out of him. You should have popped over and said hello, Mr. AT. Next time you see me at Warhammer Fest, come and say hi. Alt Boys says, probably because the people who subbed were getting theirs later than it went to the shops. Good point. True that. I heard that a lot, so there you go. Maybe it's just to ensure that the subscribers get it sooner. I mean, I wasn't seeing that, but it was probably fulfillment issues and therefore a change of supplier. I think we're there at that. We're already 7 minutes over, Ralph. So I want to thank you for joining me tonight, mate. Yeah.
Jesus, time flies when you're having fun.
Well, I hope we have had fun. There you go. I think that's it. Jack, you've been getting on with your painting. Thank you very much for that.
That's all right.
You chiped in every now and then, which is always good. Always full of wisdom. Jack's got that frightening encyclopedic knowledge of the rule system in every battle tome, irrelevant of whether he plays the army or not, which absolutely freaks me out. I said to him this morning, can you just send, it was to Patrick actually, can you send Patrick a full list of my Sylvaneth? And Jack just quickly did a full list of my Sylvaneth from the top of his head. Without, we're talking like 4,500, 5,000 points worth of Sylvaneth, and it's just like, you've got that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that unit. It's not even his army. He was too shy. Oh, for heaven's sakes. I'll see you at the next fest, mister. Right, okay, Amit says, thanks a lot, Team WGO. It was good to see you all. I'm chasing Rachel down to see where she's at with her tournament prep. I really want Games Workshop to send us some samples of the new paints so I can get Rachel sat down on camera demonstrating how easy the new paints are to use. So
that'll be an extremely useful
It'd
show.
Be cool, wouldn't it? It'd be really cool to sort of Rachel who, going, right.
If you and I do it,
Yeah, exactly. I think it'd be perfect. So I'm going to reach out to the people at Games Workshop. You never know, but I seriously doubt it. But we'll give it a go. Everybody send Games Workshop an email and say, send Phil the colours he needs to do skinks, please. That'd work.
There's just one word I've got for Demon Lizard from Outer Space.
Yep.
Do not sell your armies because you think, they're bad. Games Workshop goes like that with the power of your armies. Something that's bad now. 2 years' time, they get a new battle tome, and if you sold your army, don't do it again. Okay? Listen to me.
I 100% agree. Time flies between battle tomes. Thordalim just says, new selling slogan, if Rachel can do it, anyone can. There you go, you see. That should be there. Forget that 2 thin coats or 1 thick coat. Just go, for heaven's sakes, Rachel can do it. I got my wife and kids using the contrast paints on Sunday, says DJ the Lucky One. Cool, where was that then? Was that an event or are they out and I've missed it? Who knows? Maybe some people have received them already, which would be incredible.
I think he refers to a Warhammer Fest Sunday.
Ah, good point. That was on the Sunday, wasn't it? Right, okay then. We're going to say goodnight all. I'm going to hit the credits, call it a night, and we'll see you all. Oh, I tell you what, I'm just going to say there'll be a show going up on Wednesday or Thursday this week, and it's an interview with Andy Hicks. And if you don't know who Andy Hicks is, just Google Eldar Andy Hicks. And he's done some incredible conversions over the years, and I was fortunate enough to. So this is not someone from the industry. This is a hobbyist just doing beautiful work. And I figured the guy, he does a brilliant website, and he's very active in all the Facebook groups for Eldar. And I wanted to interview him and kind of reach out to hobbyists. So please also in the Facebook group, if you've got any other suggestions of hobbyists who deserve some limelight, then send me suggestions, because when you see what this guy's been doing with Eldar over the years, absolutely stunning. And I think it's like a 30-minute interview we've got going up on Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday. So there you go, check it out. Good night all. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Jack.
Night all.
My pleasure. Have a nice one, everybody.